Well, it looks like the darker halves are finally starting to emerge in episode 4.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Hey, travelers, welcome back to Roberto's Room, and I am reviewing episode 4 of Daredevil Born Again. I just literally finished watching it, and it was another fantastic episode. Honestly, this one started a little bit slow. I will be mildly spoiling the third one, so if you haven't seen episode 3, go watch that episode and come back. Hector Ayala was killed in episode 3. White Tiger is gone, and we actually open up with his body being brought in, and as well as his suit, as what the opening shot of this episode was. And this episode really, at least to me, seemed like we are seeing the cracks in both Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk. We know, obviously, their alternate personas, whether it be Kingpin for Wilson Fisk or Daredevil for Matt, are things that they are trying to keep bottled up. Fisk for the sake of his mayoral campaign, and Daredevil, Matt Murdock, because of his feeling guilty for Foggy, which is definitely addressed in this episode and is something that I want to talk to you about. We also, in this episode, which I thought was awesome as well, we are starting to see Muse. We saw him now for the first time after getting teases of him. He's been the one that's been drawing some of the murals that we've seen around Hell's Kitchen, and I really loved the touches. Now actually seeing him and getting a tease for his character. We don't get to see him a lot in this episode, as again, this is more about Wilson Fisk and Matt Murdock. But for most of the episode, we are mainly just going through life with these characters. Some things happen, which of course make Fisk kind of boil up against his assistant, which is played by the son of James Gandolfini from The Sopranos. And they have a really good exchange where you really see the menace of Fisk again. I love when he, gets into your face, and he's kind of like a shark in that way. He's unpredictable. You don't know if he's going to strike at you, if he's going to just, swim on by, if you will. And there's some scary scenes with Fisk. Again, we are watching these two characters on parallel lines kind of crack, and we are wanting to see what exactly, gets them over the edge. Matt, after the death of Foggy, back in episode 1, we are now seeing a Matt that is focusing more on his lawyer side of his persona, Matt Murdock, and less on Daredevil, not at all on Daredevil. That's how we are addressing this episode. Not only that, but we also get to see another marriage therapy session with Matt Murdock's partner and Wilson Fisk and Vanessa, where again we see more of like, well, did Fisk kill the person that Vanessa hooked up with, was having an affair with while Fisk was gone? If you haven't seen Echo, again, Fisk got shot in the face and was away for the recovery process of that. So Vanessa had been alone. She'd been handling her business, which we saw back in the previous episodes that she was doing really well and keeping everybody in line. But she did have an affair during this time, and Fisk is wanting to address this, or actually not wanting to address this, because we don't know exactly what happened to this other person, but knowing Fisk and knowing his proclivity for violence, we can only assume what happened. One of the great things in this episode is that one of my favorite characters, Punisher, comes back into the fold. We don't see him in his suit, but because Matt is following up on a shell casing that he found at the site of the death of White Tiger, we now get to visit Frank Castle, because of course on the shell is the logo of the Punisher. Now we know from last episode, and I got this wrong, I don't think it was actually Punisher, and this episode confirms that it was not Punisher that killed White Tiger, but it was a copycat. We've seen a lot of copycats, especially on the police force, as the policemen and all the police that were assaulting Matt Murdock had this tattoo with them. So we know that there are copycat killers out there, if you will, that are doing it in the name of Punisher, but are not actually Frank Castle. And this is where the episode, at least for me, it went from being a good episode to being, honestly, the best episode of this show. Because the scene between Matt Murdock and Frank Castle left me in tears. Like, honestly, I wish I would have videotaped my reaction to this episode, because I was bawling, because you get to see Frank's perspective and Daredevil's perspective, which famously they had a conversation in the original Netflix show about, the effectiveness of Daredevil versus what Frank Castle's mode of operating is, which is just to put down criminals instead of just putting them in jail and having them break out and so on and so on. But one of the things that I loved about their exchange was that Matt Murdock, foolishly, I might add, asks Frank to serve with the talents that he's been given, to which Frank this is why I love this particular scene, says, look, I already served. And Frank was a decorated military veteran, and like most veterans, and it really opened up, I think it, hopefully, if people watch the show, which I'm going to get to that in a minute, will open up a good discussion on the treatment of veterans, which I really, truly believe should be treated a lot better. And I love that Frank Castle's Punisher was able to open up this discussion about the treatment of veterans when they come home. He was literally living in squalor, which is the reality for a lot of veterans that come home after having served their country. And here is somebody that has never served in Daredevil, and is asking him to be of service, which he very clearly is like, oh, I've already served, I've done my time, and this is what I've got. And what I got from all of that was, my wife is dead, my children are dead, and if you've watched the Punisher show, which I highly recommend, you'll know why he is the way that he is. He had a bad day, and famously, kind of a parallel to Batman and Joker, Punisher tells Daredevil in the Netflix show, you are just one bad day away from being me. And honestly, with the death of Foggy, he has turned away from the Daredevil persona, but we know that he is definitely going to pick it up again, at least we hope so, as Muse comes onto the scene and as Fisk continues to show cracks in the facade that is Mayor Fisk instead of Kingpin. But honestly, this episode was tremendous, and then at the end we do get another tease from Muse, which I'm really looking forward to. I know they're going to change a lot about his character from the comics, but the last scene of this episode felt like I was watching a scene from the Saw movies, so I'm really interested to see what they do with the character of Muse. They really haven't done anything like... This show's been phenomenal. This show is really, really good, and this brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about in this review. This show, for some reason, has the lowest rating as far as viewership of any Disney Plus show, including The Acolyte, which is a travesty of justice, to put it in Matt Murdock's terms. People, we need to be watching the good shows, and I know that Disney has squandered a lot of the goodwill of the people by putting out all of these garbage shows like Acolyte and She-Hulk, which Matt Murdock was in, but we don't talk about that. Not even Born Again is talking about that, thank God. But when they make a good show like this, especially one that has roots back, in the good age of Marvel, we need to tune in to watch these shows, because this tells Disney, hey, we are responding to the good stuff you're doing. Likewise, to the stuff that is just atrocious, we should respond in kind. But I encourage y'all to go out and see this series. We're now in episode 4. I will be reviewing every episode, so please stay tuned on this channel. I'm actually also going to be reviewing a few other movies and doing some more content. I've been talking to a few other creators that I know, and we may be bringing some special stuff for you on this channel, so please stay tuned. I really want to hear your thoughts on Daredevil Born Again episode 4. I love this show, and I am really excited to see where they take all of these characters. I'm loving seeing all of them again and really what they're doing. The writing has been phenomenal. The action's been phenomenal. And I really like it. I wish that more people would watch this. And I hope that viewership goes up for the show, because I would love for them to make more of this. But I really would love to hear your thoughts as well. Please hit that like button, and if you haven't, please subscribe. We are on our way to my first goal is 500 subscribers, and I have some really special things I want to share with you guys on the channel when we get to those benchmarks. My first one being 500. We are now at 51. But I am looking forward to continuing to grow this channel, and I am really looking forward to having you along for the ride. Well, as always, travelers, thanks again for tuning in to this video, and as always, go with grace.